No, my first deployment was in the initial start of the war. So 03. Over April 03.
What are the burn pits?
They operated all over in Iraq. And the one I was at was at Balad in Iraq. So they burnt 24 hours a day. So in this burn pit, they would use jet fuel and they would burn everything because we didn't have a place to, it's not like we had incinerators. So that was the very first thing I saw when I got off the plane on my second deployment in Iraq was this fucking huge fucking flame, man. This flame, they're like, oh, it reminded me of like the Springfield tire fire on The Simpsons, you know, where it's just burning all the time. And they would burn like batteries, car parts, they would burn human remains like arms and legs and all kinds of shit in there. Because what would happen is like Balad, specifically Balad, that was a big Kazovac spot. So if people were coming in and they got injured outside of the wire, they would get 9-line medevac in there. A lot of people who were delivering supplies up to Balad, they would get hit with IEDs. So if you get hit with an IED, a lot of times you would end up, your legs or your arms would get mangled. So people call in a 9-line. 9-line's when a helicopter comes in and a Black Hawk, and they'll come in and they'll rescue you, and then they'll fly you to Balad immediately, and then somebody will meet you on the tarmac, and then they take you straight into surgery. So then they'll just chop your limb off, you know, put that in a bag, and then when they discard those, you know, body parts, and just throw them right in the burn pit. So that happened a lot. And then our trash, you know, regular trash, medical waste, just everything. They burn everything. It didn't matter what it was. They just fucking burn everything. And then the Army being the Army, they're like, oh, hey, you gotta take your physical training test. We're in the middle of a combat zone. We're in the middle of a fucking war, but you gotta maintain your physical training standards, right? So here we are running 2 miles around a track with the burn pit, and this black particulate's just falling from the air, or falling from the sky, black particulate from the burn pits, and we're like, why are we doing a 2-mile run in this? And we're inhaling this stuff. And they're like, well, Army standards. Yeah, but sometimes, you know, the Army standards, they don't make a whole lot of sense. And, well, no, I mean, you always have to be, you know, physically fit, but at the same time, like, you could have picked a different time or different place to conduct a PT test. I mean, really, a 2-mile run when there's black particulate falling down to conduct a PT test?
I mean, the burn pit's on like 24/7 though, so that shit was always around you guys, right?
Yeah, but the location that we took it at was really close to the burn pit. It was like by the main gym.
But they could have took you further away and had you fucking do the PT test,
yeah,
basically, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they didn't.
Yeah. Well, there's plenty of gyms, so everybody had the chance to work out. I mean, NCOs are supposed to, you know, work out, and they take their soldiers, and then they're supposed to work their soldiers out, and that's how the kind of Army, you know, works, right? So you don't just sit around. It's not like you just sit around and get fat and lazy. Plus, on top of that, you know, I worked, I only slept like 4 hours a night, 4 hours a day, because of the up-tempo of what was going on at Balad. So even though I didn't go outside the wire, which was not by my choice, I hated staying on the fob. I wanted to go outside the wire. People be like, oh, you're fobbits. Yeah, well, not all of us got a chance to go outside the wire. Like, they were looking for machine door gunners, and I wanted to be one. But they wouldn't let me go because of my position and what I was doing, you know, at Balad. So we just stayed around and took incoming mortars all the time, you know?
I was told that the burn pits have like cause like lung cancer and shit like that. Like, do you have anything like that going on from them?
No, I don't have any lung cancer, but, you know, just cough up the random bit of blood every once in a while. I got some ground glass opacities in my lungs, and that was pre-COVID, so, all this stuff was going on before COVID happened, and when COVID happened and they're like, got ground glass opacities, COVID gives you ground glass opacities. And I'm like, shit, I've already got ground glass opacities in my lungs. Like, I already know what that feels like. I don't wish this on nobody, man, because that shit hurts.
What is that? Ground glass?
Ground glass opacities is like these little tiny things that are attached in your lungs and your nodules in your lungs and your airways and stuff. So that's what I have. Interstitial lung disease is what they determined I have. But other people did end up getting cancer and different kinds and types of cancers, because after all of the stuff and the research that they conducted from those burn pits, it's the same types of materials and the same types of carcinogens that were found from the chemicals that were in Agent Orange from Vietnam. And this is how they treat us veterans, is that survivors from Agent Orange are just now getting recognized and benefits from the VA. It took John Stewart, him fighting and going to the VA to fight for the burn pit victims. Like, I am lucky enough that, well, I don't want to say that I'm lucky enough that my heart gave out, which is why I got 100% disability and I'm covered for the rest of my life. But there are people who, these veterans who were discharged from the military, who suffer from burn pits, and they aren't getting shit from they were not getting shit from the VA because of the burn pits, and that was like their only condition, and they had fought and fought and fought. So John Stewart, what he did was amazing, because the VA and our government just does not want to give benefits to us once we've gone over there and served our country, and that's how it's been, and that's how it's always been.
I want to apologize for the interruption. Please subscribe and hit the notification bell. It really helps out the channel and you'll never miss an episode. Thanks. Do you want to talk about the mortars?
No, I don't care.
I guess can you just like explain what it was like?
My second deployment to Iraq, so 05 to 06. The first time I ever experienced an incoming alarm, I was like, what the hell is this? And then all of a sudden, I hear this incoming alarm. I'm like, incoming, incoming, incoming. I'm like, what the hell is that? So we're all, like I said, we're in these tents, and they're like transient tents because we're waiting to occupy our, like containers is basically what we're sleeping in. Not like 20-foot containers. These are just like, I don't know, they're like, chews is what they're called. So they're all like freaking out, and I'm like, incoming? Like, where the hell are we gonna run to? It doesn't matter what you can do. Get under your cot? Like, you're not, I mean, if it fucking lands, man, it's gonna hit, and you know what? Then what? You're still gonna get hit. We're still gonna get fucked up. We're in tents, man. Like, so that was like the first experience I had. But then it was like right after that happened, I walked outside the tent, and there was like these two Apache gunships. They were sitting right outside, hovering above, and they were like, and we were like, I don't know, maybe 100 meters, 100 meters, 50 meters right outside of the wire, and they were just fucking some shit up right outside the wire. And we were like, oh shit! And then like all these explosions and shit started going off, so that was pretty badass. So then, eventually, we ended up getting moved into our chews, and you know, the mortars, they just kept happening, man. But it was okay because, every mortar that they sent out, for every one mortar they sent out, we, as far as counterfire, sent out 355 millimeter rounds to that position for whatever that was. So I think they ended up starting to catch on, because I think eventually they started coming up with some different tricks and how they started launching mortars and stuff like that. But
can you explain the incoming alarm? Like, what does that mean?
But the incoming alarm is basically if a round is going to land within, I think, like 50 or 100 meters of your location. So it means your butthole's going to get puckered, because that round's coming close, man. So you better take cover. So like one night I was working night shift as usual, and I was getting ready to go out and move some Connexes around because I was a cargo specialist, and I go to the container mover. It's called a Kalmar. And I'm getting ready to start this thing up and drive out to where I needed to go. And my friend, she comes over and she's like, Sergeant Davis, she's like, you need to get out of there. And I'm like, why? She's like, the incoming alarm's going off. I'm like, I don't care. I need to go move these containers. Because at the time, like I said, I get bored easily. It was night. I didn't have anything to do. And I'm just like, I'm going to go move these containers. She's like, you need to get down. I said, I ain't getting down. I don't care about no damn incoming alarm. She's like, no, you need to get down right now. She's like, there was a round that just landed in this yard. And I was like, whatever, man. So I was like, fuck it. I'll get down. If you're telling me there's an incoming alarm going off, I can't hear the damn thing over this machinery. So I get down, and the next day, the day shift, found where the round had landed, and it actually landed exactly where I was going to be moving that damn container to. So had I been about 2 minutes earlier, that mortar would have landed directly on top of my cab and killed me. Like, it would have been a direct hit, no doubt about it. I would have been fucking dead, man. I would not have been here. So that kind of always brings things into perspective, because, like, war is hell, man. You never know when it's going to be your time to go. And not only that, like, where we were located, we were next to a fucking fuel pod farm, which stored, like, millions of gallons of fuel. So if a mortar or they ever wanted to attack us, the fuel farm was literally right next door to where we were at. So if that thing went up, we would have died anyways. But these are not really things you, like, always want to keep thinking about while you're there, because you're just going to drive yourself crazy. So you always just try to push through. But the mortar attacks, you know, by the end of the tour, I was like, fuck, I just want to get out of here. Because after a while, you start to realize most of the time, people were either getting hit or killed when they first get there or when they get ready to leave. And when we were getting ready to leave, I swear to God, it would seem like we had more mortar attacks when we were getting ready to leave. And I was just like, at that time, I was so fucking spent. Like, mentally, I was so drained. And I was just ready to go, man. And I was mentally exhausted by that point and was ready to get back. And when I got back to Fort Lewis and we started running again, that's when I noticed the change in my lungs and how I could breathe. And that's when I started thinking, like, man, there's something that affected me. And I knew that it was something that was in the air that was in Iraq, because I couldn't breathe the same. I couldn't run the same, and everything was different. But everybody wanted to keep denying it, of course, because that's how the Army works. They're like, no, everything's fine. So.
Can you explain the feeling you told me about where you can't wait to go back?
So, being a veteran is, it's difficult because a lot of us, and I would almost, I don't want to say all of us, but I would say a lot of us who have been deployed spend a lot of time in Iraq or Afghanistan or wherever we are saying, I fucking hate this. I can't wait to get out of here. I fucking just want to get home. And then you get home and you're like, fuck. I'm so bored. I wish I were back in Iraq. I wish I was back over there. Being back in the United States sucks. Like, I fucking hate it. I'd rather be sleeping in a fucking tent or in a chew where it's 130 degrees, wearing my body armor, carrying my AR-15 or my M16, and sweating to death and taking mortars all day long. And it's fucked up. Because while you're there, you hate it and you're fucking miserable. But then when you get home, you're miserable because you want to go back.
Where does that urge come from, though, to go back?
some people, some veterans, it's that camaraderie of, you know, that brotherhood and that camaraderie of being with other fellow veterans, because there is no other feeling like it. I mean, you're there with a bunch of other people and you're all experiencing the same thing. You know, it's a group of people and you're all seeing and going through the same shit. It's like you're all going through it together. You're sharing that one experience. It affects me a little bit. After I got out the first time, I really missed the Army. But when I came back into the Army, I came back into the Army for a specific reason, you know, to support my family. And that's why I rejoined the Army again. But I don't know why people do it. I don't understand it. I don't get it. And I went back in 2018 on my own volition as a contractor, and a lot of people who got out of the Army went back to Afghanistan and Iraq as contractors because they missed it so much. But going back as a contractor isn't necessarily the same as going back as being in the Army. And I think that that's why some people joined up to go fight in Ukraine, is because they miss the service. They miss going out and they miss that lifestyle. Because once you are in it, the lifestyle is kind of cool. But at the same time, it does get a little bit old after a while. So I'm not really sure about that reasoning why, but there have been times, I think, I don't know, the best thing I can say is, like, if you've ever watched Rambo 1, like the real Rambo 1 from 1978 or 9 or 80 or whatever it is, the very last scene when Rambo breaks down, when Colonel what's-his-name comes in there to talk to him after he's shot up the whole town. He's just shot the whole town up, man, and Rambo just breaks down and loses it, and he starts crying. That is how I've sometimes felt as far as, like, what PTSD does to you emotionally, and you don't understand what's going on. You don't understand why you're doing the things that you do, because nothing makes sense anymore. And you try to make sense out of a world that doesn't make sense, because you've left a world behind that doesn't make sense in that combat environment, to come back to a home, to come back to a place, to a civilian environment, to a bunch of civilians who don't understand you, and then you try to go to a normal job, a 9-to-5 job, and work around civilians who have no fucking clue about what you've been through, what you've gone through, and you try to relate to civilians, and civilians don't relate to you, you don't relate to civilians, so now you're really fucked, man. Now you've gone down this hole of, like, well, now I gotta try to act normal? You know, I was just joking with my recruiting buddy about him and how he likes to shoot people in the fucking head and take their heads off, and we laugh at pictures of people's heads that are blown halfway off, and I'm supposed to go and get a job at Twitter or some normal civilian job and just try to quote-unquote fit in? I can't fucking fit in, man. I'm emotionally damaged. I'm wrecked, you know? How is somebody that's 100% disabled veteran supposed to just fit into society now? You know, these are the struggles that are real to me. This is why I can't work. I can't fit into normal. What's normal to me now? There's no normal for me anymore. My normal's been taken away, man. There's nothing normal to me.